Hello everyone, this is Valet Games, and today we are trying something a little bit new for the first time. This is, I think I'm just gonna go and talk about what I'm actually liking about Pokemon Legends ZA. I think they finally figured it out. I do. I think they finally got the gameplay together, and I really am excited for the future of Pokemon. And if you see here, one of my first examples of this was just they have more stuff to do now. They figured out that, hey, we can't just have this big, empty, open world with optional trainer battles, not even forced trainer battles, optional trainer battles, and just Pokemon and call that a game. And I'm glad they're finally realizing it. And with Pokemon Legends ZA, it all takes place in a city. It's all smaller scale, which I'm not a big fan of. I would love a big open world, as would everyone else, but I am very excited about the gameplay problem specifically that they've begun to fix with this title. So as I shuffle through my boxes here and find the necessary Pokemon for this side quest, this is one of many side quests you'll find throughout the city that just the inhabitants of the city will have problems, and it's just an extra part of gameplay. But it's something that I think has been missing since the early days, or well, early days, late days of 3DS, I guess, was the last time we really saw this, where there's a level of interactivity to the world with your Pokemon beyond just battling and catching that I'm really excited for them to be bringing back and trying out again in this new game. And here we have an author who is needing Pokemon for his book. He's looking for inspiration for his book, just hanging out at a local cafe. And that's something I don't really think we've seen since the old games that I think it's been missing, which is just other characters and other small moments that enhance the world and are just smaller optional gameplay moments that tie in to making this world believable and lived in. And I think really that has been the heart of Game Freak's problem with the past few Pokemon games, where the problem is twofold. Part one is the gameplay, where they've been losing gameplay aspects from their heritage as pixel JRPGs, when they started in the 90s and 2000s. Which you've seen that over the years as the worlds have been getting bigger and bigger and emptier, right? Back in the day, there used to be, HMs were a headache, but HMs were there because it was part of the gameplay. You needed them to navigate the map. You weren't able to fast travel right away because everything was gated, and that's how they kept you contained and forced you to interact with the trainers and with the world. And as they moved into their big open world where they've gotten rid of these headaches and kind of leftover gameplay mechanics from previous eras of gameplay and innovation, like, oh, we can get rid of this because of technology, or we thought of a new way to do it. They've removed those aspects without replacing them with more gameplay, and that's what I think Pokemon ZA has really honed in on is how do we replace all this gameplay we've removed over the years with something else. And I think these extra side quests are a really smart, really fun way to do it. Where here now you see we have a battle quest where we moved on from the side quest with the author stuck in his brain rut, and here we go, and we're battling this lady for whatever reason, I don't know. But it has more side quests beyond just one type, and I think that's something that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet very specifically was missing. Was A, there was no reason for you to interact with the trainers at all, and I'll show a little bit of gameplay and explain this further later on. And B, there's just nothing really to do besides the one type of quest, which was battling, you know, you could battle the Team Star or you could battle the gym challenges, or but that's all you could do was battle or catch. So going off of that, now we're going to go in and I'm going to show off a little bit of Scarlet and explain, you know, kind of the differences. I don't I didn't actually play through the game again. This is just footage from kind of the open world. But, you know, as you can see, we run around and it's great that it's big, there's Pokemon all over, but it's kind of like a really heavily frosted cake where that's all there is, right? It's got it's got good frosting, but then you get down and it's just a little bit of cake, where there's no real reason for you to interact with this world or with any of these things other than, you know, you would want to, which is fair, but once you get bored with that, you know, there's nothing pushing you further. And I think good game design and good game development is making a game that is inherently fun to play, that the player wants to keep exploring. Now, the reason I get so frustrated with Scarlet and Violet specifically is because I want to keep exploring, but then there's nothing to explore or interact with. You just have these big open maps, these big open worlds, which it's got the Pokemon, right? And it still has towns in it, but there's no real reason to interact with it. And if you dig a little bit deeper into them, there's nothing to even interact with in the first place. Where Scarlet and Violet and ZA at first glance appear very similar, but then you look at, you know, something as simple as the store like this, where Scarlet and Violet just has a menu that pops up, you know, but it shows you the store, giving it the appearance of something you can go into. Whereas over in Legend ZA, it's all integrated really nicely into a way that makes it feel very natural and believable, and you can interact with things beyond just a surface level like you can in Scarlet and Violet, where my complaint for both of them remains the same. It would be nice to be able to enter buildings again. Remember that, remember the good old days. But in something like Legend ZA, it gives you clothing upon clothing upon clothing and your model and a nice little display. And there's just an interactivity to it that they didn't quite get to with level or with Scarlet and Violet, sorry. Where everything in Scarlet and Violet at the end of the day is mostly just a menu and a prompt screen that you push through. Legend ZA, at least to me, does a lot to go, hey, we know that this isn't quite what you guys want it to be, so here's fun gameplay to make up for it. And I think that's specifically what this was missing out on. And specifically, you know, my kind of point where you look around this world and all there is Pokemon you can catch, trainers you don't have to battle, but you can battle. And then if you look at the story stuff, it's Team Star or the gym challenges, which are the same kind of quests. It's all just battling, right? There's battling or there's catching, and there's nothing really to do beyond that. The second part of that would be, you know, just the models as a whole look a heck of a lot better than they do from this game. This game was clearly rushed and pushed out and meant to be, I don't even know. It looks like it was meant to be a 3DS game still in certain parts, you know. And I think that's always nice when the game looks nice, but I think that's been part of the problem with why they've been so confused. I think the fans keep screaming the wrong message, like, hey, we want this big grown up open world, this big grown up open world, but then there's nothing to do in it. Whereas you look at this, and this is post game map, so obviously there's everything unlocked, but you look at the map over in Legend ZA, and there's just stuff to do around every corner. And the only part that sucks about it is you have to sacrifice the open world for that. But I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that gameplay. This is the part I'm more curious about is their actual gameplay mechanics that they're updating. I wonder if they're going to stick with this or if they're going to go back to turn-based. This was a really nice breath of fresh air, but typically they kind of keep the experimenting locked to the side games like this. But as I was saying, in Scarlet and Violet, it's kind of just, they're in here, but it's empty. Versus you go in here and the models are here and they interact with you. Not every model interact. Actually, every model interacts with you. That is that is how it works. Some of the Pokemon will run away from you, some of them will try and fight you, some of them are alphas and are just aggressive on sight. But it's not just, 3D models in a big 3D world, which is what I think has been so much of the problem with the last two mainline entries. They've just been empty models and empty worlds, and everyone forgets or tends to take for granted how much actually having things to do and people to interact with builds upon the world. And over here, like, this is another just neat aspect. You can just hang out with your Pokemon, which Scarlet and Violet had this with the picnics, right? But again, when Scarlet and Violet looks like Scarlet and Violet, people are going to be mad. But again, that's what I think the wrong message we've been sending has been. Or they think it's a graphics problem, it's a visual problem. It's not. It's a gameplay problem. My problem, I think a lot of people's problem, is with the gameplay, where they kind of stopped trying to make games and were kind of confident just resting on their laurels. And moving over into Sword and Shield, this is kind of where the start of the problem occurred, where this was them trying to figure out, right, how do we move from the old school turn-based gated, routed JRPGs into an open world action RPG, I guess, is what they're moving towards. And Sword and Shield was a very good hybrid of the two, which the the longer time has the more time has gone on, the kinder I've looked back upon this game, where this part is, this is where you see kind of the entire problem with Scarlet and Violet, where this is the entire game with Scarlet and Violet. Sword and Shield uses it only for these wild zone areas, and then it still has the rest of their kind of what Pokemon used to be throughout the rest of the game. But showing off of this, like, this is, you look at this and you look at Scarlet and Violet, and there's not a whole lot of terrible differences between the two, where it's just a big empty world with these, you got your boss or online fights you can interact with and with other people. And you have your 3D world with the Pokemon that pop up from time to time. But you look at it, and there's no actual gameplay occurring right now, right? If you were to go and fight a Pokemon, it would just be catch it, or battle it. Which in this, at least it gives you experience for that. Or maybe it's I'm getting this mixed up with Scarlet and Violet. One of them, it feels like there's not even much reason to really battle wild Pokemon. It might be both of them actually, because you get so many experience crystals all the time that you can just, automatically have your guys at whatever level you want. There's not really a reason to run around and interact with a wild Pokemon. Not that you got too much experience from them, back in the day. Back in the day, your experience more so came from Pokemon trainers, but there was a level of, you know, headache with the old Pokemon games that made the gameplay. You look at traversal. If you wanted to surf, you had to unlock the HM, then you had to waste a move slot teaching it to your Pokemon. Then you had to have a Pokemon that could learn it in the first place, and then you had to go and use it to traverse across water. This game, it just gives you a bike, right? It just gives you the taxi service. And they never quite replaced, that gameplay, even though it wasn't fun gameplay, it was gameplay, right? Oh, this is another thing. You come over into these games, there's just these big, interesting areas you want to interact with, but then there's no interactivity in them. Where even if they would have put like an alpha Pokemon here for a boss battle, it would have been another thing and another aspect of the game you could interact with. And I don't know. I think that's pretty much all my thoughts on these so far. I just kind of wanted to sit down and try this format of video, get my thoughts out, and see if people reacted to it well or what people thought. Um, let me know if you guys want to see more of these. If you want me to just stick with the gaming stuff, let me know what I can do better editing wise. I'm still trying to learn all these programs and get this stuff figured out. Hopefully my voice comes through okay and it's not too annoying, not too much of a headache. But this has been Valet Games, and I think I'll wrap this up. These are just